This video is sponsored by Audible.com. Hey guys, this is Ray with Phone Arena and you're watching our video comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the HTC One, the two new flagships of these leading Android manufacturers. And as you can imagine, it would be pretty interesting to see which one will come out on top, seeing that these will be probably the two major Android phones, at least for the first half of 2013. It is quite obvious that the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the HTC One have a completely different understanding of design. On one hand, we have the light and plastic body of the GS4, and on the other, the heavy metal one of the One. Both have their pros and cons. The Galaxy S4, for example, certainly doesn't feel like a premium smartphone, but is light, relatively compact, and comfortable to hold. The HTC One has that expensive feel to it, but it is also bulkier and not as comfortable to use in the hand. Overall though, it shows that HTC has paid much more attention to the design, and the One has this impressive appearance, and every small detail on it, like the physical buttons, for example, feel like they're part of a quality, expensive product, which they are. Meanwhile, the Galaxy S4 has a blender appearance, and none of its physical features manage to be particularly exciting, with the sole exception of the fact that Samsung has managed to fit such a big display in such a compact, for today's standards, smartphone. Speaking of the displays, both devices are equally impressive in this respect. On one hand, there is the enhanced Super AMOLED screen on the Galaxy S4, which is no longer as cold as the display of its predecessor. It also has the high contrast of AMOLED screens, the lush colors, and on the other hand, though, we have the Super LCD 3 display of the HTC One, which is equally impressive, but with more natural colors, but still very, very vibrant. The Galaxy S4's display is a bit bigger. It's 5 inches versus the 4.7 inches on the HTC One, but the difference in reality is not really big. Now let us say a few words about our sponsor, Audible.com. Audible is a leading audiobook service with a catalog of over 100,000 hit titles like The Hunger Games or 50 Shades of Grey, just to name a few. What's more, if you go to audiblepodcast.com/phonearena, you'll be able to download one free audiobook and listen to it anytime on any device. If you want to get started with this beautiful service, just head over to audiblepodcast.com/phonearena. Both smartphones come with Android Jelly Bean, but the Galaxy S4 has a slight edge here, as it features the very latest version 4.2.2 out of the box, while the HTC One is initially equipped with Android 4.1.2. That doesn't mean that the HTC One users will be missing much in terms of Android features, but the more important thing here is the vast difference between the two custom user interfaces that HTC and Samsung have utilized here. HTC and Samsung have worked hard to create new features for their flagship phones, with which they hope to attract the attention of customers. However, they have once again gone in completely different direction. On the HTC One, for example, we have the new Blink Feed user interface, which is this one here, which, as you can see, is very similar to Flipboard, for example. It shows you latest news and updates from social networks in this pleasant user interface, but in addition, of course, you have kind of a more traditional Android UI here. If this Blink Feed is not what you is not really your cup of tea. The good thing is that you can also make some of these standard home screens here your default one. So when you're pressing the home key, which happens pretty often, you'll be sent to one of these and not back to Blink Feed every time. Everything or almost everything in the HTC One is very well made. This time I'm talking about the software features inside it, like the blink feed, as I said, like the HTC Zoe's, the new camera feature, the automatic album creation inside the gallery. So HTC has really done a very good job with the features on the HTC One. And in contrast, Samsung has packed tons of features inside the Galaxy S4. They have Smart Stay, they have Air View, they have Air Gesture, they have Smart Scroll, Smart Pose, really tons of unique and custom features, not all of which function perfectly well, and not all of which being very useful, but still they're here, making the Galaxy S4 the more versatile device of the two. In terms of small details, in terms of graphic quality, if you will, the Galaxy S4 is not quite on the same level as the HTC One, just like when it comes to their physical appearances and how the buttons will feel when you're pressing them. The same thing goes pretty much for the software here, but it is the more versatile device with more features, allowing you to do more stuff and more customization options. The Galaxy S4 comes in two versions, one with Snapdragon 600 and one with Exynos 5 Octa, depending on the market. We're testing the one with Snapdragon 600 here, which is the same chipset in use by the HTC One as well. Both devices are armed with 2 GB of RAM and the Adreno 320 GPU, and both run perfectly smoothly, as you would expect from cutting-edge smartphones these days. So both of them perform exceptionally well in benchmarks, in 3D games, when just browsing through the user interface, no lag whatsoever. So great job by both companies optimizing their software and implementing the new Snapdragon 600 CPU. There is a slight difference, however, when it comes to internal storage. Once again, the Galaxy S4 tends to be the more versatile, the more flexible device. It comes in 16, 32 and 64 GB versions, and also features a micro SD card slot here inside for additional memory if you need. The HTC One, however, only comes in 32 and 64 GB flavors and does not feature a micro SD card slot. Both the Galaxy S4 and HTC One come with their custom browsers made by Samsung and HTC, and we really appreciate that, because both browsers are better than what you will get if they simply had the mobile version of Chrome, which is slower and less responsive than both of these guys here. In addition, both the Samsung browser and the HTC browser feature support for Adobe Flash, so you're getting the full web with both of these handsets. The GS4 and HTC One are great camera phones with lots of settings and options for you to tweak. The HTC One has the unique Zoe feature, which captures short video footage along with each shot, making for an impressive multimedia experience when viewing your photographs. The Galaxy S4, on the other hand, has a bunch of special shooting modes, which tend to be pretty useful if you happen to be in some of those special situations. The higher resolution of the Galaxy S4's camera, however, definitely gives it an edge when it comes to detail. As you know, the Galaxy S4 has a 13 megapixel camera, where the HTC One has a 4 megapixel camera, but using larger pixels. The idea here is that the HTC One should produce better images in low light, and to an extent it does, although the difference is not really tremendous. In all other situations, however, we tend to prefer what's coming out of the Galaxy S4's camera, because its 13 megapixels allow it to capture more detail into the scene and Overall, its images tend to be with higher contrast and more vibrant colors, making them more appealing to view. The HTC One, however, tends to have the upper hand when it comes to exposure, as we notice that some of our shots tend to be overexposed with the Galaxy S4 compared to those that we made with the HTC One. Both the GS4 and the HTC One capture 1080p video, but the footage from the Galaxy S4 seems to be a bit cleaner, a bit better exposed, while the HTC One seems to be capturing a tad more detail, just a little bit more detail, but its exposure tends to be a bit unstable, so we kind of prefer the more stable video that we captured with the Galaxy S4. The HTC One definitely has the upper hand when it comes to call quality. Its earpiece right here manages to emit deeper and more natural sounding tones compared to what's coming out of the GS4. The same thing goes for their microphones. These are the two Android phones of the year, or at least for the first half of the year. While the HTC One X failed to fight against the Galaxy S3 last year, it looks like HTC has better chances in 2013. The HTC One is equal to the Galaxy S4 in many aspects, and where it feels inferior to the Samsung, it manages to make up for with something else. The HTC One looks and feels like an expensive product, which isn't something we can say for the Galaxy S4. The Galaxy S4, however, has its own advantages. Its uninspiring design is actually surprisingly comfortable to hold and use. Its dimensions feel significantly smaller, while its weight is lighter compared to the HTC One. With the Galaxy S4, Samsung is continuing its quest towards complete domination over the land of Android. With the One, HTC proves that the former contract manufacturer does deserve its place among the leading smartphone companies. There really cannot be a better phone between these two, as both are successfully countering each other with their own unique features. This was our video comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the HTC One. If you'd like to learn more about these awesome smartphones, visit us at phonearena.com. Thanks for watching.